Hello and welcome to the nation demonstration for the Repopulation. I'm Joshua Halls, the co-owner developer of the Repopulation. What we're looking at here is a city that was created by a player. So what we're doing is spinning around looking at all the different structures or buildings in the city. So everything you see here was actually placed in game. And we're also looking at two guys here. Menke to the right is actually part of my nation. You see him waving there. He's actually going to demonstrate how you can actually play with other players and place structures in the game. Tanera to the left is actually part of another nation, and he'll actually look at the different alliances that we have in game with different nations and how those impact the game. But the first thing I'm going to do is actually drop down what we call a control center. So we're going to actually take this structure and place it down into the game. So when I click on it, you'll notice that I can actually see it in game now. We're going to move it around the map just a little bit here, and you'll notice it goes red when it collides with something. So what we actually want to do is place it next to this building right here. We're just going to drop it down. You'll notice that we went from uncontrolled to repop land now for the actual control of this area. So what we're going to actually do now is have Menke there actually drop a structure inside of this map. So what you'll be able to do is he'll spin around here and he actually will start placing the structure down here in a few seconds. So you won't be able to see him doing it much until he actually drops the structure down in place. But as soon as the structure is dropped down in place, it actually is pushed out to all the other people around you. So you can see it just flash in there for a second. So it's going to actually pop in. As you can see, it's actually in the map now. So he placed the structure, it popped in, I can actually see it now. So what we're going to do actually now is go and modify and move that around a little. You notice as I'm hovering over it, I'll see some information about it, so we'll say it's under construction. What we're going to do now is click on it and do what we call nudging. This actually moves it just a small unit over to the left or the right, depending on which way it's facing. When we double click on it, we can actually move it with the mouse. So this makes it a lot easier to move things longer distances, and you can see how it lines up and just drops into the game. So what we're going to do now is actually place a corner module. These are all actually lined up and set up so they can actually kind of pop in place and look proper since they're lined up in an equal fashion. So what we're going to do now is actually drop another wall and just finish this unit over here. So as soon as we drop it in place, we can now see that these are actually all lined up, so these actually look proper. Everything is balanced the way it needs to be. What we're going to do now is actually lock it. This prevents us from actually doing anything to it. You'll notice that we can double click and move that one. When I try to go and double click and move that one, it will not work. So once I unlock it, then I can actually make changes to it, rotate it, nudge it, even delete it. So once it's deleted, it's gone. So in order to get one back, we have to actually create a new one and drop it in place. Boom, drop it in place, as you can see in there. So it's dropped. We'll notice that it's pretty much lined up now, so we're good. So what we're going to do now is kind of run back towards this building over here and look around. So you can see that we already have some tables in place. So what we're going to do now is actually place a building right next to this little pathway here. As you can see, the building is actually being placed. So once the building is dropped down, it'll start building, and I actually can walk into the building now and actually start working inside the building. The nice thing about this is once you're inside the building, I'll start placing objects inside the building. You'll notice that they line up inside the building, so everything places just fine inside the building. So you'll see that now there is a little desk in there that's being built, and you can place other things, such as this little object right here. Once you drop that down, it's actually built, so you'll see that it's actually inside this little structure here. So you're actually able to populate inside of these areas and build inside these areas as well. So this will be a major part of decorating, as you so call it. So you'll be able to do this from the inside or from the outside. As you can see here as we're moving around this table, that it can definitely go in there, and that is pretty much the basics of how these objects work. So you can see that you can just move them around and place them freely. So what we're going to do now is actually go and get rid of that and start looking at some of the other nation features that are in the game. So what we're looking at mostly now is just placing the different structures. So we're actually going to go and load up the nation window. So when we load up the nation window, you'll see that we have some information about the nation, such as the name and the roster listing. So the first thing we're probably going to do is actually change Menke's rank from lieutenant to something different. So you'll see that actually once we click on that, we'll have the options of actually changing his rank. So you go down that, you drop it down, we'll change it from lieutenant to officer. Hit change, you'll actually notice it changed his rank back down to 1. So it's actually been changed. So next thing we'll do is to make him a mayor, but since he's not part of the town, we need to invite him first. So what we'll do is we'll send him an invite. Within a few seconds, he'll get the invite and send it back to us, saying it was accepted. So now he's actually part of the nation, part of the city, sorry. And you'll actually be able to go in and make him mayor. So now that he's mayor, he can actually run the city controls, even if he doesn't have proper permission over everything that he needs. What we're going to look now is actually the structure listing. So as you can see here, we have what we call harvesters. These allow you to harvest resources and create these resources at a time, a certain time period. These are a little bit slower than going out and manually collecting the resources, but it's a steady income of resources, so that's what a harvester is used for. What we're seeing here are walls. These are different kind of walls you can have in game. The big thing with these walls that you'll see that we can either spend player credits, nation credits, or city credits, and we can also create blueprints. You'll notice that we have a 5 under there, so we can actually place and create blueprints. So we're actually going to do that. So you'll notice I subtracted 2 of those, and 2 blueprints actually went to our inventory. Blueprints allows you to share these different structures to players depending on permissions and how they're set up. And actually to be able to drop down an object or a structure inside of the map, you actually have to have a blueprint. So once that's done, it'll actually be placed in my inventory, and we'll be able to go through that. But you also notice that those numbers just increased when we were talking. That is because another player actually made and bought those items and placed them in the nation queue for us. So now that you can see that we actually consumed the blueprints, we increased the number from 3 to 6, and we're ready to roll on to the next one, which are control centers. These are basically just different theme control centers. As you've seen earlier in the video, you drop down a control center, control the area. Once you drop down a control center, that area is controlled until someone else destroys your control center. So it is possible to siege and take over the control centers in the areas just by destroying the control centers. We got different buildings. Then we also have what we call food and liquid. Food and liquid actually increase the happiness value for the city. In order for the city to grow from one level to another, you actually have to have make sure the city is happy. So at the very basic level, you have these food structures that you can place down, and you also have water. So you can see that we actually place these in the map as well. So you can see we're moving it around, go and rotate it and place it down. And we're going to add a food facility as well. We'll rotate that and place it a little bit further down the map. So you'll see that they're actually placed in there. You also see that they're updating in the map as well. So we can go back now that we have these actually planted under construction. So we'll go and move on to some other structures that we have in place. Work camps. What these will do, they'll send out workers to actually extract resources around the local area. So if there's a stone around the area that they actually can get to, it'll send workers out to go out and extract the stone. So these make it easy to get resources and actually dump them into the city. Turrets are a defensive structure. What this allows you to do is drop down a turret to actually attack anyone that comes close to these turrets. We'll actually look a little bit at these a little bit later in the units area, so we'll get back to that a little bit later. So alliances. A big part of having nations is that you can actually set up alliances with other nations. So you'll notice that with the Tempe nation, we are peaceful. So you have an option to go either going up and down. So if you want to go up from like peaceful to ally, what you'll have to do is actually send that request over. And so that's actually what Tempe is going to do. He's actually going to send me over a request from go to peaceful to ally. And you should see that actually start to come in here in a second here. You'll notice it's down there. So I can actually accept or deny this request. So we're going to go ahead and accept it. In order to go back down, we can just go from ally to peaceful. Since we're going down in basically an alliance, you can do that unilaterally, so you don't need both sides to agree to it. So we automatically go down to peaceful. Both sides will actually see that change. So that's basically alliances in a nutshell. Next thing we look at are some settings. So require invite to join, pretty simple. If this is checked, you actually require invite to join the nation. Otherwise, if it's unchecked, they can join the nation without an invite. This makes it really easy to get new players, but anyone can join when you do that. Next thing we're looking at are ranks. You can actually rename the ranks. So we go from officer man to from officer to officer man. You'll notice actually these will change as I go through there and update these. The reason we use the update is just in case you make a mistake, it doesn't automatically change these. Especially when we start adding and removing ranks, it gets a little complicated. So you have to actually hit the update button in this window to make the changes happen. So you'll see with the add, we can add a rank. We can also remove a rank. So it's pretty straightforward. You start out with 5 ranks. You can go all the way from 2 ranks to 99 ranks. Those are all customizable. The bottom part, you see different permissions, so we can actually set the different ranks up for how we want these to operate. So you have some really basic levels that you see here, like minimum invite, minimum demote, kick player. Those are kind of normal clan guild type structures. Then you have other things like place buildings, place harvesters, promote, and so forth that are more nation-bearing settings. The next thing we're going to look at here is the bank. So we have player credits, nation credits, and city credits. What we're going to do right now is deposit some city credits since we don't have any in our city. So we hit city credits, deposit, boom, player credits go in the city. We can also withdraw, so we're going to withdraw some city credits. You'll notice that once we do that, it goes back into our player credits. And you can also do either city or nation credits based on your permissions. Of course, you have to be properly have the proper permissions to withdraw from the city or from the nation. So here's our cities list. So these are actually the 2 cities that we have in our nation right now. Since this was initially taken over, it does have no name, so it's set to unset, so we're going to actually name it something, call it My Town, hit rename. You'll notice that it changes, so now it's called My Town instead of unset. You'll notice it also is the capital. You can change the capital just by going to the other city, hit, make capital. This will switch to the capital. The capital is a default city that everyone goes into when they join the nation, so that is important, at least in that aspect. Everyone goes into that nation, city in that nation, so you can change at any time, though. Next part we're going to look at are the actual attributes for the city, so you'll see that there's a variety of these. So you can have more hostile attributes like armory or military training, or you can have the more peaceful, kind of crafter-oriented attributes like markets and laboratories. What we're actually doing now is increasing the points that are actually associated with these. They have a max based on the level, so you'll see that one maxed out at 3, so we can go any higher. And what we're doing now is actually submitting these points. You'll notice that once it's submitted that you can't reset it, so once it goes, it'll only go back to 1. So this allows you to change the points in these, and you get additional points every time you go up a level. So you'll see right now that we're using 1 out of 6 points, so it shows 5 out of 6. The next thing you'll see is the happiness meter. When we dropped the food and water, we actually added some happiness values into the city. So you notice that they're 25% full for both. And then what we're going to do now is actually look at units. So units allow you to guard the city. So what we're going to do now is actually go over and look at the different how these will work. So what we're going to do is kind of change this GUI down and rotate over towards where these units are supposed to be at. So let's see, we have one turret over there right now. What we're going to do actually now is place another turret down right next to it. Once Tamara gets over there. So you notice that he ran over there, so we're going to drop another one of these down, just to have a second one over there to show how this works. So once it's placed down, you'll see that the turret will show up in the units now. And what we're going to do is actually change the level that these attack on. So you'll see that we have Alliance of Peaceful with temp key. So actually if we set these to peaceful, it'll attack anyone that's either peaceful or lower. So we'll change these over, and notice that they'll start attacking right away. So you can actually change these, and they'll start attacking the players that are not have the proper permissions or the alliances with you. You can also change these cross zones, so I can be in a completely different zone and change these, so I don't actually have to be anywhere near these turrets, which makes it really nice, especially if you're kind of commanding the city and you're not anywhere near the city, you're out adventuring somewhere else. Well, that's all we have for now. Alpha testing starts in June, and we hope to see everybody there. So visit therepopulation.com. Thank you.